Welcome to another edition of Journey of Hope. Stories of people that have been impacted by the healing ministry of Loma University Medical Center. Stories about what's happening at the medical center. Each year we're seeing around 1.5 million outpatient visits. It's an unbelievable thing that's taking place there week after week. Miracles, one patient at a time. One of the thrilling centers of excellence on our campus is the East Campus, which has been transformed in the last 10 years from just a community hospital into a truly healing environment. Our special guest today is the administrator of the East Campus, Michael Jackson. Michael, I've invited here to share with us some of the exciting things that are taking place. Michael, it's good to have you here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
We've got people from around the world that are watching that know about Loma Linda, and they know about different aspects of Loma Linda, but I thought it would be good to kind of get a glimpse of what's been happening here and how the East Campus has been transformed from really the community hospital. Now, how long ago did you come here to Loma Linda?
Actually, my arrival was in 1996, so I've been here for about 15 years.
And you've had a wide variety of administrative responsibilities in the healthcare environment and working in several of our hospitals. In fact, I got acquainted with you when I was over in Hawaii, and you were the chairman of our board while I was over there at Castle Medical Center. Well, tell us a little bit about what's happening at the East Campus. And we've got a visual here that we'll take a look at that kind of is an overview of the East Campus. Tell us a little bit about how it all came about. I mean, it was a community hospital. What brought about the change?
Well, it's been a really exciting period of time the last 10 years, particularly for me. I've enjoyed working there more than any other place I think I've worked in my career. And this is, by the way, my 44th year.
44th? Well,
yeah,
congratulations.
So the East Campus is a real jewel, I think, at Loma Linda, and we're very proud of what it does there. It's, as you mentioned, a center of excellence in rehab, orthopedics, and neuroscience care. And really about 10 years ago, we determined that we were going to create a specialty hospital, really a campus, more than just a hospital, a whole campus that was devoted to the care of these patients. And so we set out to try to transform the acreage that was there, 22 acres initially, and then the bank that's located on our property donated an acre behind the bank for an entry into the center of the campus. So it grew to 23 acres. And it incorporates really the whole continuum of care for these patients. They can come and see their physician. They can be going through diagnostic tests. They can have surgery if they require that for orthopedic care or neurosurgical care. If they're a rehab patient, they can come over from the University Medical Center, where many of our patients come through the trauma program and onto rehab, and stay there for what's now a length of stay of about 16 days.
So prior to this time, when it was all centered, were they having to go to all different places across the area?
Yeah, they were. In fact, I recall at the very beginning of implementing our vision, I got in the car and I made the route of a patient. And it took me over 3 hours of just driving, parking, and riding elevators to just move from one location to the other without actually any service involved. So
it took you 3 hours to go to the different points.
Yeah, and they were all up and down Barton and clear over to Caroline Street, which is close to the freeway.
And we're talking about people that are generally physically challenged in some way.
Very much so. Many of these patients have severe mobility problems. And so, you know, what you and I might be able to do in just a minute or two might take them 10 or 15 minutes, even just to walk across the parking lot and get to an appointment. So we felt that centralizing everything, making it very convenient for the patient, also for the family member, because many of these patients come with, you know, attended by family members or friends. So when they come on the campus, you want it to be something that's intuitive. They understand it just generally where things are located. And then it's convenient for them to park and move from one location to the next.
So you've actually changed some of the physical structure then, trying to accommodate these different patients then?
Yes, we have actually gone through a 4-phase development of the East Campus. The first phase, that may sound mundane, was actually building a large parking lot at the rear of the property for our employees because we didn't want the employees parking where the patients parked.
And then half the patients parking way away from there.
Yeah,
right?
where it would be a problem for the patients. And so we have a wonderful group of employees that work there, and they caught the spirit of that. That was phase one. Phase two was actually opening up the entry into the middle of the campus across that land I mentioned that the bank donated, and creating centralized parking for the patients. Phase three, we'll see later in our discussion here, I believe, the Zapara Pavilion,
Right.
which is a new building that was put on campus for rehab patients. And then phase four will involve eventually the closure of a frontage road so that we can capture all of the land in one location without, without any other disruption to the patient.
So this is a dream and a vision that's been, I know you've been articulating it over and over again, and finally people are catching the vision, and it's beginning to, we're beginning to see the reality of the whole thing. It began to make an impact. Now, we've got a couple of things here you may want to comment on this picture here, because it really is kind of a symbol of what is taking place over there.
It is. It's a picture taken from the book of John of Christ healing the paralytic. And, for those of you in the audience, your host, Lynn and Karen Martell, actually donated this picture. It's a very large picture created by Nathan Green, hangs in our front lobby, and it just reminds us every single day of why we're really there. And the purpose of all this, of course, is to extend Christ healing ministry to those that are disabled.
Well, tell us about the mission and the vision here of the campus and of what you have there.
Well, the mission, as we're talking, is really to glorify God through our work and to reach out to people in need. And, the community has a very, very large number of disabled people that live around us. You sometimes don't realize that, but, the percentages are enormous. And so we're here, to represent Christ to them and to care for them, hopefully, as He cared for them. And that's what the picture reminds us of each day. And the vision really is to create a patient and a family-centered environment that is based on our Christian values. And so, we try to move away from looking at things from an institutional or a bureaucratic standpoint, and to focus really on what is putting the needs of the patient, the family first. And that may sound simple, and it may sound obvious that that's what any institution would want to do, but when you're dealing in a large organization with hundreds or even thousands of people, it requires a lot, as you've said, a lot of redundancy. We actually created a word picture of what it's like to enter the East Campus. And it's a narrative that's probably about 1,000 words, and we've remained true to that over the years, making sure that whatever we do is consistent with that word picture, if you will, that vision. And it's a vision driven by patients and families, not the institution.
Well, we take a lot for granted as a person without any physical challenges, and kind of assume that people can get around and can reach for things and can move and have access. And when you meet some of these people, it's just absolutely overwhelming to think that of the different provisions that need to be made. And you've been working on this for the last 10 years. Well, I've heard the term over and over again in the last 10 years, and I don't know that I heard about it before I got acquainted with you and you began articulating your dream, and it had to do with this healing environment. So we got a picture here of the East Campus. Why don't you tell us about it?
Well, I think what we've learned through research that was done by a gentleman named Roger Ulrich, who's a PhD at Texas A&M, is that people heal better and faster if they're in a particular environment. His research showed this, that patients had lower lengths of stay, had less pain medication, lower blood pressures, less stress, if you will, if they were enveloped in a healing environment.
Just from the environment alone?
Yeah, Ulrich is a environmental psychologist. So he was looking at how the environmental psychology interacts with what's called psychoneuroimmunology, which is how does the body respond to different types of physical environments. And he found that if patients had access to nature, which, as a Seventh-day Adventist institution, we love our Creator God. And when that's present in the environment, it makes a huge difference for patients. Just as it does if they have access to social support, if they are given increased options and choices so they're more in control of their care, if you eliminate environmental stressors like sometimes light can be a stressor, sometimes noise can be a stressor. There's various factors in our environment that can cause stress. And the last thing, if we have pleasant distractions that pull patients out of their room and into other environments, so they're not caught in the mundane of patient care. If you can imagine being in a room for 16 days straight, that's a long period of time.
Is that the average time now that we're talking about?
Yeah.
16 days.
And that's an average.
Yeah.
Some patients are there for even longer.
Yeah.
So those 5 factors make up the healing environment, and that's what we've incorporated in our campus. We have areas for play. We have a physically challenged playground, the only one in the region for children with disabilities. We have an amphitheater in our park so that we can hold outdoor events, and we have Praise in the Park and other types of events that take place there.
And these are all designed for the patients then?
Yeah, and the community.
And
it's the concept, and this is a real important concept, Lynn, is to get keep the concept going of the patient interacting with able-bodied patients or community members.
Yeah, just becoming a part of the group.
Yeah, you don't want
being
them
excluded.
You don't want them separated. They're already separated
Yeah.
in the community. So we want them to integrate and feel a part of something that's bigger. And when able-bodied people come in and serve disabled people, frankly, sometimes it can be awkward. I know when I first went there was, what do I say to a person with a disability? How do I relate to this person? And over time, you learn that they have needs just like we have.
And they want to be related to just as a regular patient.
That's right.
Instead of a special needs patient. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're blessed and you're blessed in doing it.
That's right. Well, so what do we have here? An overview of what? This is a picture of the Zapara Rehabilitation Pavilion. Tom and Vi Zapara were major donors to this effort. It's a 24-bed facility that's built specifically for rehab around the healing environment. And it's a wonderful facility. I think it's the most beautiful inpatient facility in the state. Well, I know that one of the goals was, have it in the top 5 in the country, and
right.
And I believe that you've accomplished that. And just tell us what we're looking at here.
Well, I might just mention on the top 5, we're certified by an agency called the Commission on Accreditation of Rehab Facilities. And so, we want to do more than just say we're a good facility. We want other people to say that about us as well.
To recognize it, that's right.
And so we're surveyed for a maximum of 3-year periods, and we've always achieved maximum accreditation. We've had 11 areas of exemplary performance and commendation, and because of only 1 recommendation in 6 years, we rank in the top 3% in the nation.
Good, congratulations.
So we've achieved some of those goals that we're mentioning.
Well, I remember when we first started talking about this dream and being able to articulate it, and began doing some fundraising for it, and how we have come so far, Michael. You've got to be thrilled as you...
Well, you've helped with that,
well,
Lynn. You've been a huge part of that.
Glad to be a part of it. What do we have here?
Can we go back a second to the other side?
Sure.
This is showing the inpatient room, and you can see there's a therapy zone, a patient zone, and then when we talk about patient and family-centered, you can see an area on the far side where there's an area for the family to come. They can stay overnight and be with the patient. You can imagine if you had a spinal cord injury or a stroke, you'd want your family near. And so it shouldn't be awkward for that to happen. It should be something that can happen naturally. And that certainly is the case in this room. There's many different amenities in here we won't have time for, but that help the patient and the family get access to resources so that they can ask better questions of their physician and can participate more in the care process.
Well, I've noticed as I've looked and been following what's been happening over there in the East Campus, that there's more of an emphasis on the family as a unit in trying to help these patients, you know, be incorporated back out into society and into their family. And you've done many, many things there. But and for our viewing audience here, you're looking at a new standard of healthcare when you look upon the East Campus, and particularly the Zapara Pavilion here.
I mentioned connection in nature is the first principle, and you can see that every single one of the rooms has access to a patio. And and this allows also for options and choices for the patient to choose to dine in the room, dine out of the room, and they can even leave this area. There's a gated area there at the bottom of the picture where you can leave on a pathway and go out and walk around the campus, or be moved around the campus in a wheelchair and get outside and experience the beauty of nature.
Well, I know there's been a significant difference in the landscaping that's taken place there over the last 10 years. And I know, you know, 9, 10 years ago, you were talking about what you wanted to have done, and it'd take repetition, repetition, repetition. And in the last 8 years, some of the dreams that you've had is beginning to take place, because the campus is completely different, inside and outside. And what do we have here?
Well, this is just another shot, but actually this is a picture of part of the environment. There's other parts of it that are actually more developed than this picture. This is actually a memorial to my parents, and my mother and dad died a few years ago, and my father first, and at that point I spoke with my mother about donating a fountain to the campus, and also putting a scripture here that would be encouraging to people as they came on the campus. And so this is Revelation 22:17 that encourages people to come and drink freely of the water of life. And there's a fountain that's adjacent to this that's not in this picture, that you know, is a symbol of the gospel message, and how basically it's free to us to access if we choose.
Tell me, you know, we got a number of different doctors with a number of different practices, and how are the doctors working together? I mean, you know, I know that in some places you can have these little towers or isolated islands, and you're talking about the need for doctors to come together and work. So tell us what's happening there.
We really have the most amazing group of doctors that work at the East Campus. You know, they've become our colleagues and our friends. And, you know, wonderful things can happen when you have a large number of people aligned around a vision, a mission and a vision. And of course, the mission is serving Christ and glorifying Him through our work. And the vision is what we've been talking about. And when people come to Loma Linda for care, they just know they've gone to Loma Linda. They don't think of it as their physician per se, or their hospital per se. They just know they've had this experience at Loma Linda. So on our campus, our physicians are very, very central to everything that we do. We collaborate in decision making with them. They align their practices with the hospital, so hopefully when the patient comes on, it's a seamless experience. They don't go from one, you know, environment to the next. It's all the same essential environment, just different stations, if you will, along the way.
What kind of specialties are we talking about that work there?
Well, we have rehabilitation, physical medicine and rehabilitation, and we have a large cadre of doctors that do that, and residents in training too, by the way, because we're an academic center. Then we have neurologists, neurosurgeons, orthopedists, family medicine physicians. Those are the principal specialties.
So we got the whole gamut there of
we do.
Yeah, people that
all the way from primary to specialty care.
Have a new slide up here about the Gallup survey. What's been happening? Because I know people come in and they do research and they do surveys and they evaluate what's going on. And how's the East Campus been faring?
Well, the Gallup Corporation does an anonymous survey of our employees, and you want there to be a large number of engaged employees, people that really buy into what we've been talking about. you want a very small, if non-existent, group of disengaged employees. They can be your organizational terrorists that don't like being at work, they don't like each other.
And there's always a few around.
There's usually a few. In fact, Gallup says you can't, eliminate all of them.
Eliminate may not be the right word, but
yeah, well,
yeah,
that's true. But you are looking
you are looking to eliminate them. You don't want them around if they're not a part of the mission and the vision, and they're counterproductive. Those are not the people we want on our team.
I think that's exactly right. You do everything you can to educate and train and help them catch the vision, but if they don't, they need to join our alumni association and move on to someplace else where it's acceptable,
right.
and it isn't here. So this slide, which is a busy slide, basically just shows that this outside entity, Gallup, has surveyed our employees and determined how many engaged employees we have. And a ratio of 5 to 1 is considered world-class. In the last 3 surveys, we've hit those numbers and consistently. So we have a lot of very passionate people that work there and that are concerned about, the serving others and enjoy working together.
Well, I know, and the East Campus is probably a real good example of this. Many of the people that are working at Loma Linda, and I use the term broadly, are working there because of the ministry and the mission that they're involved in, and that is particularly true over there on the East Campus. I mean, they are looking at a ministry to the people. I mean, many of them could be working somewhere else and getting better pay, but they chose to and remained here at Loma Linda and being a part of the ministry team. One of the exciting things that I've been aware of the last few years is this matter of the possibilities, because we're dealing with people that have gone through all kinds of accidents and trauma, and trying to get them back in to become a functioning part of society. You've developed a program called the Possibilities. What is that? And I've got a couple of slides here, I think, that would lead us to that. What is the Possibilities?
Well, Possibilities is really attempting to engage people that have come through the hospital, normally would be discharged and just go home, and they would be out.
Being there for the 15, 16 days and go through the whatever it was.
If they were in a typical hospital, they'd be discharged and they would go home. And if they had suffered, a major disability, oftentimes they feel awkward, embarrassed, disenfranchised from society.
Alienated almost.
Yeah. And they stay in their homes and they don't come out and interact with others as they could. And so Possibilities is a program. It's a community service program. It's free. It's a membership services program. And you come and you join it. You can be disabled or able-bodied and be a member of it. And it has various activities that are whole person oriented. So this happens to be a picture of sled hockey. It's an event that we hold annually. We ask disabled people that enjoy sled hockeying to come out, and they participate with us under the banner of Possibilities. We also have other...
Now, well, let me find out. When we see these participants here, and we talk about sled hockey, these are not able-bodied, and when I say able-bodied, these are people that had some kind of a challenge. Is that
That's
correct?
right.
Like what? I mean, what kind of a challenge?
They could have a spinal cord injury. They've been in a car accident or some other traumatic event.
An amputee?
Could be, yeah. Could be an amputee. And it's their way of engaging. It's oftentimes, I know in some of our events we've had students from the School of Medicine come down and play people that are disabled in basketball. Yeah. And initially they come down and think that they're going to win. The able-bodied. And then they find out, wait a minute, put me in a chair and I'm not as functional as I thought that I was. And usually they lose by a wide margin to the disabled.
It's a real learning experience.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And that's part of it. It's part of the community, the disabled learning to be reinculturated, become part of the community, and the community be part of them.
And because this is a teaching hospital, it's a wonderful opportunity for some of our people going into medicine to participate in this whole thing.
And they do. We have hundreds of volunteers now that work in the Possibilities program, and I think we have some other slides here too that we could show you. That here's one showing a cycling program that we have going up. This happens to be at Big Bear, and we're talking with high school students. And again, we're trying to teach high school students what it's like if you have a major disability. That does not mean the end of your life. You know, life can go on, you can have a high quality of life. And so whenever these students coming through interact with the disabled, you know, it educates and trains them to embrace the disabled, be a part of the solution, don't be a part of the problem.
And what we have here is something that's really become well known throughout the country. Tell us about this.
This is a Possibilities Triathlon. We just had one this last weekend, and we had around 1,000 people, that adults and children, that came to the triathlon. And so you basically you run, you bike, you swim, and you don't have to be able-bodied. You can see, I think in the middle of the picture, someone that's in a chair. Mm-hmm. And this, I always enjoy seeing this person come each year, because he can't do those events that I mentioned except in a chair. And so his mother brings him down from Barstow, and they make the trek down, and he does the run in a chair, because the only thing he can do is move his hands. But he's out there participating. And you know, it just warms your heart to see people that have a sense of meaning and purpose now to their life that otherwise would be shut in and separated.
Yeah, well, I participated the last few years. In fact, did this last one again. We had 2 or 3 teams, and we always have a great time. And it's really an inspiration to be around those people that you think are physically challenged, and when you see them functioning, you know that they do much better than many of us that are able-bodied. Well, our time is coming down to the end, Michael, and I just want to thank you for the tremendous change that's taking place in that campus, and for the hundreds and thousands of lives that are being impacted when you think not only the patients but the families themselves. And for our listening audience, you know, Michael has shared with us some of the exciting things that have taken place here at Loma Linda, and the changes that have taken place on the campus and the healing environment and the impact that's been made. And God's got a plan for your life. If you'll look to Him and put your trust in Him, He'll open and close doors that you'll be able to discern His will. Until next week, God is listening and waiting for you to turn to Him. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your prayers and for your support. And until we meet next week, God bless you, each one.